but in Parliament, a lot is happening. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is expected before the plenary this morning to brief the House on what is being done to keep the economy afloat amid the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, the minister is also expected to seek approval for a $35 million facility from the World Bank to support COVID-19 spread. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is joining us live with the latest update on what really is happening in Parliament and whether the Finance Minister is present. Now, good morning to you, Joseph. What can you tell us? Is the Finance Minister already before the House? Well, Joseph will be joining us. Before we have Joseph, make sure you get interactive from the content we're delivering. You can give us what you also know, what you're observing by way of the lockdown in the community you live in, whether in Tema, Accra, the precincts of just the boundaries of Accra. We're talking Kaswa and its allied communities, or in Kumasi. Let us know what you've seen. Tag us on Facebook, JoyNews on TV. Also give us the latest update through our Twitter handle, JoyNews on TV, and let us know what you've seen so far. But moving on, prior to the taking effect of the movement restriction this morning, JoyNews MFA Apo engaged the Minister for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, on lockdown last night to enable the public ask him all the critical questions on their mind following the President's last presidential announcement. Now, just in case you missed that engagement, here is an excerpt of what transpired in the studio.
A pass for you to.
Before I go to the exercise question, there's a related question that was sent in earlier also about whether herbal clinic and centers are exempted from this. Are they also allowed to operate during the period?
To the extent that they are not handling emergencies, it is not our contemplation that they are exempt for persons to move around. They are open because they are health facilities. They are open because these local herbal items are also health facilities. But it is not our contemplation that people who are going for non-emergency items will also be trooping up and down. Yeah, for people who have some dire conditions that they have to go to these local herbal centers to get some of these certified products, it is something that will be allowed.
And then exercise, jogging. This question runs through a number of people have asked that question, whether they can still continue their normal routine.
As much as possible, jog or exercise within your compound. As much as possible. And there are several exercises we can do in our compounds to a large extent. The spirit of the restrictions is to ensure that as much as possible, people should stay home. It is in this jog that you say you are going for a 20-kilometer or 10-kilometer jog that you may go to pick up the virus.
You have to go up the McCarthy Hill.
So as much as possible, stay home. If you need to exercise, there are several exercises we can do within our compounds without necessarily going.
You can walk the dogs as well.
You are encouraged to do it within your compound.
Okay.
A few laps within your compound will be helpful. These are not ordinary times.
Okay.
Is it that our police personnel are not well equipped to take care of this? And also, I've seen several videos on social media being sent by the soldiers themselves, giving a very serious warning to the public. And what I've seen is that those videos can scare people not to even go out to attend a nature call. Seeing how our communities are, we have to queue for a public toilet. So if these kind of videos are being sent out there, how do you expect people to attend to a nature call?
Good evening, MFA and the Honorable Information Minister, Kojo Nkrumah. This is my humble suggestion. Can the government for the next 3 months give nurses, doctors, other healthcare practitioners, and security personnel who are directly involved in the fight against the pandemic a tax-free on their next 3 months' salaries? I mean, the next 3 months' salaries should not be taxed. And I think this will serve as a morale booster for this category of personnel to help fight and put their maximum best in fighting the pandemic. Thank you. My name is Kweku.
I would like to know, as part of the utilization of the $100 million as announced by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, are you planning to use part of the money to build a permanent infrastructure to cater for future pandemics, so that when it comes, we are not praying that it comes, but when it comes, we are not finding ourselves wanting?
So that's what transpired yesterday evening when MFA Apo had that interaction with the Minister for Information, Kujo Ponkroma, who also happens to be the Member of Parliament for Ofuase Ayeribi, and talking about all the related issues of a lockdown. The duties of government or government business needs to go on, and as a result, the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected before Parliament this morning to undertake a briefing on what is being done to keep the economy of Ghana afloat amid the spread of coronavirus. Now, the minister is also expected to pray the House for the approval of some $35 million. It's a facility from the World Bank, and this is expected to enable government support activities or actions regarding stopping the spread of the disease. And Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, our lead parliamentary correspondent, is joining us live. And Joseph, how soon is the briefing going to be? Well, we seem to have some technical difficulties with getting access to Joseph, but you can see him, and we'll try and stabilize that shot for you. But in the meantime, again, the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected before Parliament. And as a result of that, we are also hoping that he'll lay before Parliament an agreement for a facility of some $35 million. This facility is going to be accessed from the World Bank. You know that the business of government needs to move on, but all this is in relation to how government is able to keep in check the spread of coronavirus and its attendant expenditures. And Joseph has already joined me. Joseph, how soon is the briefing of the Finance Minister expected before Parliament?
So this is something that we were expecting to come off at 10:30 because the House was supposed to have started sitting at 10 o'clock, so that then by 10:30 the Finance Minister will be in the House. But it looks like things are delaying because I've not spotted him on the presence of the House as of yet. The House itself hasn't begun sitting. It looks like things will delay a little, probably getting into after 11:30 before we would eventually hear from the Finance Minister.
Have you been able to find out what the content of his briefing would be?
Roland, can you say that again for me?
Have you been able to find out what the content of his briefing to Parliament would be?
Yes. A number of things. He is expected to update MPs on the economic impact of the coronavirus situation on the economy. He's also expected to lay out specifically what government intends doing. We've gotten the hint that he will be announcing details of a planned stimulus package for businesses and individuals, and even some support for various households. Those are what is expected to be contained in the address. But beyond that, the House is also expected to go ahead and approve a $35 million facility that government is seeking from the World Bank in order to help deal with the coronavirus situation. This was laid in Parliament, that was last week Saturday, and referred to Parliament committee when it comes to finance. And so that committee is expected to bring us this report later today, and the Finance Minister will guide the process to ensure the approval of that $35 million facility.
Relatedly, we also do know that the other expenditures beyond just getting to know how coronavirus could affect the economy, but more so this facility. Will the Finance Minister be expected to speak on these?
So exactly. Even well apart from that, just about 3 weeks before the whole COVID-19 situation evolved, the Finance Minister had laid before Parliament a request for a supplementary budget approval. Government indicated getting into late last year that they had spent in excess of 6.7 billion cedis to help deal with energy sector debt and a number of things. And so a little over a month ago, the finance minister laid before Parliament a request for approval of supplementary appropriation of the 6.9 billion cedis in question, which is money that has actually been spent already. They're just seeking a retrospective parliamentary approval for that. And it was referred to the Committee on Finance, which has returned its report recommending that the House approve it. So again, apart from, first of all, the $35 million World Bank facility that the finance minister will be guiding the House to approve later today, apart from him delivering a statement on the state of the economy in the light of the COVID-19 situation and what the stimulus package will look like, he would also be guiding the House to seek approval for that supplementary appropriation of 6.9 billion cedis as part of the processes later today. So it looks like the minister's hands are full going into this day as far as proceedings in the House of Parliament are concerned.
How are the members themselves taking the related issues of a lockdown and also observing the guidelines of social distancing this morning?
Right now on the floor, although sitting was supposed to commence at 10 o'clock, we are well almost an hour into when sitting should have started. But from a casual look, the number of MPs on the floor are no more than 50, are no more than 50. I think that's even a very high estimation of the figures. The indication is that just maybe a number of them are still in their offices, and it's likely that they may show up in the next few minutes. You recall that the House sat on Saturday. It was a very interesting development because when the House sat on Saturday, the minority MPs, all of them, were not present at all on the floor of the House to guide proceedings because they thought what was happening was not exactly urgent business. On the specific issue of the lockdown, the minority MPs, some of them have raised concerns. I've been speaking to Dr. Dominic Ayine, who is the MP for Bolgatanga East and former Deputy Attorney General, who, for example, thinks we should have seen a national lockdown instead of a lockdown of selected areas, because otherwise, between when the president announced this and today, some people may have moved into different zones and probably still spread the virus. So not a lot of MPs are excited about the idea of a partial lockdown covering Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi, and they would have loved to see a situation of that lockdown being expanded to other parts of the country. But one thing that Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who is the MP for North Song, had requested of the majority leader late last week was that on the specific issue of the lockdown, he asked on the floor that Osechi Mensah makes provision for the House to debate the whole idea of a lockdown. And the majority leader indicated that they were consulting on that to make the appropriate room available. So it's well possible that beyond everything that the finance minister will be dealing with in the House later today, if the majority leader goes ahead and delivers on the assurance that they were consulting on making space for a conversation on the lockdown, just maybe Parliament will debate that broadly as well on the floor before or after all the other issues relating to the finance minister is concerned. And just to again add, we've gotten the indication that we may see the Attorney General laying before Parliament a document having to do with the body that has been established to receive donations from ordinary members of the public and ensure that that support is distributed. We gather that apart from the finance minister and all the other things, the Attorney General will be laying that document for a parliamentary approval for that particular move and the establishment of that body to oversee those donations and also distribution of the donations.
Well, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, I have to say a comprehensive update you've given us, but we have to let you go. But before we let you go, though, there's expected to be an, is it an executive instrument that's supposed to be, is it laid or the gazetting starting today? What really is the update on that?
Restriction of the imposition of restriction bill 2020, which Parliament passed about 2 weeks ago. One provision in it is that anytime that a president wants to impose restrictions, as President Akufo-Addo has done today, effective today, 1 a.m., he's supposed to issue an executive instrument and get it gazetted and published out there. So he doesn't have to come to Parliament for any additional approval. Once he's invoking that particular legislation, then the executive instrument will spell specifically the areas that it will cover, what exactly is being restricted, and specifically who and who are exempt from any possible restriction. And once that document goes out, then it becomes public and it virtually becomes law, and then everyone is expected to abide by that. So that's why we're expecting that the president will be issuing that executive instrument today. but it's not something that will come to Parliament for any possible approval, because the parliamentary approval for that is what is contained in the imposition of restriction bill, which the House passed about 10 days ago. And just again, to give a heads up, that document that Parliament passed indicated that anyone who flouts this restriction, as the President has announced and is going to legalize with the executive instrument, you are liable to a fine of something in the region of 12,000 cedis all the way to 60,000 cedis. And in default of that, it's possible that it could go to jail between 3 and 6 months. So just some form of education there. This is something that's contained in the imposition of restriction bill that ordinary members of the public should be aware of.
Well, thank you. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, our lead parliamentary correspondent, giving us an update as we expect the finance minister before the plenary, and among many other related things, about a briefing as to how the coronavirus pandemic is going to affect government projections, and then also what sort of stimulus packages and its general effect on the economy. There's also expected to be laid before the House, leading as a finance minister, a 35 million credit facility, if not a loan agreement with the World Bank. And we'll give you all those updates when that briefing in Parliament starts live right here on Joy News.